And I think the most important thing is actually ensuring that there's a place for singles in church community just to feel at home. The saddest thing is there's way more divorce care in church than there is singles ministry. And that clearly is just an outweighed issue. So I recently joined my church as a member, which means now I get to vote within my church community. So when things start popping up, I can actually speak to that and say, okay, but what about the families that are just individual people who are adults, who are not young adults, who are not divorced, who are not widowed or widowers or not seniors? Like, what about people, which is the vast majority of people who don't go to church, who we're trying to grow the kingdom with, aren't married,
it's
right?
True.
So how do we make sure when they get there, they feel welcome, you know?
Welcome to Rekindled Faith. My name is Melanie Bearda.
And I'm Andi Wallins.
Whether you've been wrestling with questions, facing doubt, or simply uninspired, Season 4 is here to welcome you home after a season of wandering.
So pull up a chair and be embraced by the goodness of Christ. Meisha, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Rekindled Faith podcast. Yeah, we're super happy to have you. I've been watching videos of you this morning, and you have such a exuberant, exciting energy. I can't wait to share it with the audience.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
Cool. Let me do a little intro of you, and then we'll dive right in. So, Meisha is a host, producer, director, speaker. You are an actor, a podcaster. The list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of things that you do. You have your own medium company. You also do ministry at various places. And you were a host of YTV The Zone, which I remember quite well. I don't think it's on anymore, is it?
But no, it's not. Actually canceled last year.
Okay. Oh, well, it was on a really long time. Yeah. And that's for us Canadians. Most people will know that, YTV. And amongst many other things. So you're originally from London, but I'd love to hear, so that's kind of your bio of what you do, but I'd love to hear a bit about your faith story or how you came to the faith and all of that.
Yeah, sure. So I was born into a Christian family. My grandfather was a minister, very much a part of the church community. And I was in it for a long time until I was about 16 years old. And like a lot of millennials at the time, there was a ton of scandals happening in church community in England and in North America. And at that moment, I just kind of figured that it wasn't for me anymore. I had a couple of experiences with just not really feeling accepted in church community. And so I left at around 16, 17 years old and spent the next 5-ish years, maybe a bit more than that, maybe 6 years, in the world in every way you could imagine. Basically, I was like, I'm going to reach my goals. I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to live in a city. I'm going to say yes to whatever I want to say yes to. And I did that for many years until I got the opportunity to come be invited to a Sunday service where everything changed.
Okay. And was that when you were in Toronto, or were you in?
Yes.
Yes, you were in Toronto, and then so you had left the faith. What was it about that service that reignited faith?
It was really special. I was I was working at a restaurant, like a really popular restaurant in Toronto, where like a bar essentially, and I was having a lot of fun and all that sort of stuff. And then, basically someone, while I was like drinking and partying and stuff like that, this one guy was like, I'm heading out for the night. And I thought like, okay, well, you're missing out on the party. Like, what are you doing? And then he said, well, I've got church in the morning. And like, for me, that was just the biggest wake up call of like, I'm with a Christian. I had no idea I was like surrounded by a Christian right now. And I'm like, I should be able to read his vibe and know he's a Christian kind of thing. But anyway, I said, I'm a Christian too. Just like kind of reflex. And he's like, no way, you should come to church with me. And I'm so grateful that like the Holy Spirit used him in that way, because he could have said, really? You just took 3 shots like in a row. What are you talking about? But instead he was like, come to church. And I walked into that church service, and I always describe it like I didn't realize that I was missing anything until I walked back into a place where it felt like home. And it's like color came back into my life. I hadn't known that I was missing anything. And then I walked back in and was like, whatever this is, I am coming. So I basically ended up going every Sunday after that moment.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Yeah. So you've been going ever since.
Basically, yeah.
And it seems like you do some ministry and stuff too, don't you?
Yeah, so I do about 15 speaking engagements a year, and it'll vary from speaking about singleness and dating and stuff like that, to evangelism, trusting God. I love speaking to young adults and youth specifically. Those are my like sweet spots, because those are the seasons of my life that I wish someone was really, really honest with me about their faith and their walk. And so that's what I'm doing now.
Great. And that's the age where most kids leave the church too. I think it's between 18 and 23 or something like that. Majority of them actually do come back statistically wise, but yeah, it's a really good time to be talking to people. So that's awesome. So I'm really interested in my single story. So on Christian singleness, I think that's such an interesting topic, just watching and having been someone who was single for 13 years and just got married last year.
Hey, congratulations.
Myself, woo! It's been a while. I look around and I think of myself all those years that I was longing for a husband. And I left the church actually and returned as well. So there was like a good longer than that, like 15 or even more years that I wasn't in the faith alone. But I imagine I look around the room and I'm thinking everyone's coupled up. Like, where are the single people? We're in a small town, so there's even more couples, I think, than even probably in the city. And so I think of those people and I just wonder what it's like, or what, maybe share a little bit about that. Cause I know, there's a lot of single people. It would be hard. So I'd love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is that being a single Christian, in 2025 is complicated for like the most bizarre reasons. If I, as a single 35-year-old woman in the world, it's pretty normal. Like for a person of my age to be not married or to not be in a long-term relationship, it's fine. It's just like, she's living her life, she's having fun, she's growing her career, she's traveling, she's doing all these things. But being a Christian means you're in church every Sunday, maybe twice a week or whatever as well. And it's seen you're the outlier in a church community. Yeah. So it feels absurd. What do you mean you're single at this age? And so there's this juxtaposition of living a day-to-day life in the world and feeling, accepted, and then heading into a church community where usually you feel really welcomed and that's where you go for your comfort and stuff like that. And feeling like an outlier. That's probably one of the hardest things about being a Christian single person. And that's why it was important for me to do the podcast, because I just didn't hear people talking about that side of it.
Absolutely. Being single as a woman especially is hard, even outside the Christian faith. But in the Christian faith, there's this, even more so, I think, there's an emphasis on family, or a glorification of being married and family, which is beautiful to some extent. And then on the other side of it, it can be really challenging if you are not married, but then also if you don't have children yet, or that time hasn't come. I think that's really hard too. But it's interesting that I also was reading, I was reading some scriptures, because I'm sure you're very familiar with this. There's so much in the Bible about how big of a blessing being single is. And I think that is something that we don't talk about enough. So I don't know if you're like
rarely
a lot of those scriptures, but
I mean, that's basically what I hear constantly from people is, the blessing of singleness and the blessing of singleness. And yet it's never preached on a Sunday. And so it's something that we as singles are searching for. We're like, okay, like, God, what is it that you have for me in this season? And so we search for it, we learn them, we stay with it. But then when it comes to stepping into the church community, it's almost as if maybe I've read it wrong. Maybe I've interpreted it wrong. Right. Because it seems as though in church, I've got it wrong if I'm enjoying my singleness. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
that's true. Like if you're, that's interesting, because you could be someone who's just like, oh, I wish I had a partner, and you're, down, or you can be happily single, which at the end of my single years, I was very happily single right before I came back to Jesus. And my husband was coming back at the same time. So we've kind of entered our faith again together. I think that what did I read this morning? It was like, but those who marry will face many troubles in this life, and I want to spare you this. This is Paul in 1 Corinthians. Yeah. I was like, if you read that, I wish I would have got this text when I was single. So do you find a lot of comfort in the scriptures on that?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's not even necessarily the scripture that specifically speaks about being single or being married that brings me comfort, or the difficulties of marriage, it's often just thinking about the way the disciples were devoted to Jesus on their path with him. And it was rarely about, we never really heard a whole lot about their marriages or relationships or anything like that. You heard about their ability to be devoted to Jesus as they walked with him. And so when people say things that are like, without realizing, offhanded, like, you have no idea what it takes to be married. Like, you should enjoy your singleness. And it's like, okay, yes, I hear you. But that can be really hurtful. So on the flip side, I hear it and say like, well, you know what? When it comes to the disciples and ourselves, like growing the kingdom of God, I do have the ability to do it in a way that I believe God is telling it to me, and then I just get going, as opposed to having to talk to someone and figure it out together as a team and all that sort of stuff, which is important and beautiful. But what's important and beautiful about my life today is when Jesus says, Meisha, I need you to do this, I just go. I have my backpack, I'm gone, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, Jesus himself was single, right? So.
Yeah, come on.
Single. So it can't be that bad. But
exactly.
I totally get that. Oh man, I'm just remembering a lot of those years. And there are years when there's pain and there's years when there's not, when it's excruciating, and there's other times when you're coming up against age, like your age thing in your mind. Maybe I think you talked about that in one of your podcasts. You're like, it's fine at 28, but you're getting into the 30s, it's a little harder. So we have these kind of timelines. Yeah. So another question you were talking about is this intimacy with God. You in one of your podcasts, you're talking about that time with God as a single person, that time to devote, to walk in faith is really what we need to focus on. And even when people are married or have children, that is a lot harder.
Oh yeah. Like, you only need to spend time with one mother with a young child to know that your time is no longer your own when you have someone else to take care of. And when you're single, there's a freedom in it to devote quiet time to God at like any moment. It feels like I live alone. I've lived alone for many years. And I was talking to a young adult yesterday about the blessing of it, because when I turned 30, it was the pandemic. So not only was I having this huge milestone, but I was isolated. And so what I had, and I was going through a breakup at the same time. So it was a bit nuts. So in that moment, I was, really deeply questioning, okay, God, what was this season for? Like, what are we doing in this season? What am I here for? And all this sorts of stuff. I don't know if I'd been able to hear from God if I didn't have the opportunity to wail at the top of my lungs in my apartment by myself and ask God, okay, like, what is there in this season? And what am I missing from this season? And where are you in this season? And actually being able to lament what I thought my life would be at that time. I got to do that. And I was alone in that moment. I just don't know personally if I would have been able to do it, even if I had a roommate in the next room. Like, I just needed that space to be able to, not be a people pleaser, not consider others in that moment, but just consider my relationship with Jesus at that time. I don't believe my faith or my trust in God would have gotten to the place that it is today had I not had the time to just be his cherished, like, child of God, like daughter. When I picture myself with him, I'm like this little, daughter in his hands. And I didn't get to have that feeling of being cherished until those moments. So for me, that was the most special and important season for me, was a breakup, a heartbreak, isolation, and like confusion, like all those moments. It was really important for me to experience that because it turned me to God. It drew me into his presence. I don't know if I'd be where I am today if I didn't have that.
Yeah. And I feel like that time, that preparation God puts you through to receive a spouse too. Some of us have to really, especially if you've had, I'm not going to say that you have, but for myself, like patterns with men that were maybe not as healthy.
Right. Yeah, I can say that for sure. Yeah.
God has to take that time to prepare you so that when a healthy person comes along, you're like, okay, I'm going to take it, not I'm going to, so sometimes that preparation, I feel like, is such an important time, that time to create that intimacy so that that's there, because when you get married, you can easily just kind of fall off off into, I'm just going to focus on my husband and my family and all these things. So it's kind of like building that strong foundation. Do you agree that that time is a good preparatory?
Time to be able to grow
like
that?
You're in
preparatory, yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is one thing I had to actually switch my mindset on, was I kept on feeling like, okay, God, is what's left on the checklist for me to accomplish before I get to marriage? And even though that sentence has truth within it, it was short-sighted of me. That God was only preparing me so that I would be the best wife or the best mother. I won't be a wife or a mother when I get to heaven. I'll still be his child.
Yeah.
So it was really important for him to prepare me for my eternity. So I had to stop thinking of it as this next year, because one thing I've learned as every single year goes by, I kept on saying, when I hit 30, I hope I'm married. When I hit 25, I hope I'm married. When I hit 35, I hope and I kept on making these milestones. And every time I'd get there, I'd be like, wait, I see joy in this moment. I feel blessing in this moment. So God, even when I get to marriage, I'm going to continually see another milestone. Okay, I can't wait till I get a kid, or my second kid, or my kid goes to school, I kept on moving the finish line. And I said, the only way that this makes any sense is that God isn't preparing me just for the next milestone. He's preparing me for eternity. Yes. So I can't look at it as, even though marriage is a gift, I can't look at it as it's the biggest gift or the only gift, just the next one. Yeah. Just the next gift.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. That's a beautiful way to see it. Because it is true. As soon as you hit that milestone, like a few years in, you're like, okay, and now the baby, and now the this.
Exactly.
that perpetual goalpost moving. What are you? Oh yeah. So you were saying on one of your things that you're going off the apps. You're like, I'm done with the app. Did you stick to it?
I did not stick to it. It's actually so funny. Like I talk about it all the time. Like my main thing about dating apps is to not do it unintentionally, because if you're on it, maybe your intention is just not healthy, but going on a dating app for someone to tell you you're cute or hot is a horrible idea. Right. They will tell you that. You'll get it, I'm sure. Like, women are all beautiful, and so therefore men see that. Yeah. But when you go on the app and they tell you you're beautiful, and then you come off the app and you just feel like, what was that all for? So dating on the apps with intention is incredibly important. Actually setting out some boundaries for yourself. Mm-hmm. Whether it is, I'm only going to swipe 10 times a day, or I'm only going to swipe in daylight and not like at 11 p.m. when I'm sad and feeling lonely, and really checking in with yourself every time you do it is incredibly important. I've also learned that it's important to do it in community. So involving people into the experience with you. Singleness can be incredibly isolating, but it wasn't created to be. We as a society we isolate ourselves. And so I love telling people, I'm on the apps again. And like, what about this guy? What do you think about that guy? Like, and bringing it to people generally who are rooting for me. And they usually tell me that I'm being like, that it's not that big a deal, that his grammar is horrible. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Stuff like that. Especially my mom. She's like, I went to university and your dad went to technical college. Is that any different really, Meisha? And I'm like, no, you're right. I really don't care about that. But just sometimes you need that community to help you through.
I remember going off and on apps a lot when I was single, and I actually met my husband on an app. So
nice.
There is really good story. Actually, almost every one of my friends who got married met their person on an app. I think that is kind of the modern way. And yes, of course, you can meet someone in church. That would be ideal. It'd be amazing if you could meet someone in church. But the apps offer a really great opportunity, because you can put your spiritual affiliation. You know, you can kind of vet that way to find the right match. And I think God uses any way to bring two people together, whether it's
I agree,
walking down the street, church, see what happens or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I used to feel like the reason I wanted to stay off the apps was primarily because I felt like I was writing the story if I went on an app. So if I I basically build a boyfriend, I could do it on an app. So that was me. That was me taking, away God's authority in my life. It was putting it in my hands. No, it wasn't. Absolutely not. It's a lie to think that you were ever fully in control of your, what God has called onto your life, especially if you've devoted your life to following him and surrendering to him. Yeah. If you surrender to him, then you put him in control of that. Yeah. And so for me, going on the apps, actually, I was had some freedom around it. I was like, okay, thank God. When I go on an app and if I do meet a guy on there, great. I'll continue to surrender that to God. And if we go on a first date, I'll surrender that to God. Yeah. So it was I realized in that moment that, maybe it wasn't me orchestrating or trying to manipulate my miracle. It was
Exactly.
actually me surrendering it to God at each step and making a plan and allowing him to order my steps, right? That was kind of the realization I had around dating apps. So I'm currently on one app in this moment. That's all I can handle.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, God's going to bring your person no matter what. Right?
Yeah.
There's something you could do to make it happen or not happen. Like the story is already, the promise is already made, right? That you're,
it's already in motion.
Yeah, it's already in motion. It's just a matter of when. I think that is probably one of the hardest things for singles and women that want to be moms too. It's like this timing, right? Or I'm sure for men, they've got their own battle around the timing. But for some reason, I think with women, because of our age and biological factors, there is this like deadline that's always looming. And so it makes us more timeline focused. Like, okay, I need to meet this person. I need to get this emotion and these things need to happen. And then there's God who's like, I actually don't have a timeline. So you may think you're going to meet your man in the 20s, but it's going to be later or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. How do you see that in a lot of people you talk to? Just that timeline fixation, right?
Absolutely. And it's because we're really goal-oriented as a society, right? We're always about, okay, what is your vision board for the next year? What do you want to accomplish in this next year? And so I actually spoke about this recently, but I used to get to the end of every single New Year's and have a sigh of sadness that it wasn't this year, that I didn't get married that year. So regardless of the success I'd had in my career or, personal growth, financial growth, all that sort of stuff, it's like it all paled in comparison to the realization that I didn't get married this year, or I didn't meet the guy this year. And I had to switch that on its head a couple of years ago. I just started praying, okay, God, let me pray about this sigh specifically, the New Year's Day sigh. Why can't I appreciate the blessings in the moment? Why can't I appreciate this season right now? I had to realize that I have to actually ask God to reveal to me the blessings continually. So even when I can't see it for myself, I have to remind myself, okay, well, currently I'm recording a podcast in my dream apartment that I couldn't have dreamed I'd ever be able to live in a city with tons of friends who support me and love me and watch Hallmark movies with me. All of these things are just like part of the dream. And so I had to keep reminding myself of that. And it's not to say that immediately I stopped counting down each year, but year by year, I started realizing, you know what, I'm really blessed and super grateful. And God did some amazing things this year. And I don't want to discount them. So I always remind women as they come to me and say oh, man, it didn't happen this year. Cause that is such a huge feeling on that New Year's when the countdown happens and you have no one to kiss and you're like, man, it happened again. It can be so debilitating and isolating because it's also a really jubilant moment. Everyone else is celebrating. So you can't really sit there and womp womp. But post-pandemic, a lot of women in their 30s are spending New Year's alone because they're trying to avoid that sadness. And so for me, it was an important reminder. And I tell all my friends, let's call out the blessings all year, but especially when New Year's comes, of the things that God has done in your life that maybe you've missed.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful reminder to just focus on the blessings constantly and all the good things. And I think when you have to wait long for something too, you appreciate it so much more. There's something like when things are handed to you like a rich kid and you're just given money, you don't respect it. You don't treat it precious, like it's this precious gift that you were given. So I do think there's something to that too, that you see the blessing more. Do you find that you're do you have quite a few female friends that are also single? Are you? Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I have a lot of single girls my age don't have other single girlfriends, but I've been blessed with 12.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's one thing that changed a lot. When I got into a relationship with my now husband is I had this tight group of girlfriends because you really lean on each other, right? You have this we're doing this together and we're helping each other, and they kind of take on that role a little bit. They become your family and your partnership. And then several of my friends kind of got married around the same time. So everyone just dissipated, and then everything, it's very different. You don't have that same sisterhood feeling that you have when you are on your own, when you can depend on that. So do you find that to be a big blessing in your life?
Oh, you have no idea. It's in fact, I don't even know that I prayed for it specifically. That's how I know it's God. It's like God knew I would need, and not even just friends who would draw me nearer to God, but also in moments when I'm a bit petty and I just want to complain about something, like they're willing to listen to those voice notes as well. For instance, tonight I'm meeting with the 10-minute voice notes. Exactly. Like it's such a beautiful, like, sign of connection. And tonight, me and my friends are having a PJ party and we're watching the Jonas Brothers movie because we were like, oh, let's, be nostalgic together. And it's all single women. We're all in our 30s and we're all desiring marriage. We all love Jesus. And I'm like, God, I didn't even know this could be a thing. Like, what a blessing to have that. And I didn't have that as much I had friendships in my 20s, but it's a different kind of depth I've got with these girls because we're sharing this thing that unfortunately in our church community, there's not a whole lot of representation or help or guidance or counsel in regards to that kind of stuff. There's a lot of misunderstanding. So to have friends around who get it, it's like the greatest gift.
That's so amazing. And even the fact that you're able to share that. And I don't know if you've thought about doing any kind of formal groups or things for other women that are single in the church. Yeah, you'd be so good at that. just say
I always think about it. I think that it's actually interesting. I always think about what kind of ministries do I feel like, because of my almost unique perspective, that I feel like the church needs. And the thing about women's communities often is that it's centered around moms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you go to a women's event, even all the analogies that are spoken from the pulpit are around motherhood.
Yeah.
And one of the most cringy moments for me is Mother's Day, because I have an epic mom and I just want to celebrate her. I'm not a mom yet, and that's okay. Like God didn't forget to give me kids. Like I'm not a mom. But the moment when they make us stand up and they say, you're like moms too, is the most awkward. Like people need you to stop doing
I'm
that.
not.
It's fine. It's totally fine. I love now that they've kind of changed it and added like, the moms who maybe have lost children along the way. I love when they mention that and they honor that because those are moms.
Yeah.
I'm not a mom. That's cool though. You know what I mean? So having that kind of confusion, I think if we just had actual theology around singleness, we could have ministry that would support singles without having to have these awkward, and they mean well, I'm sure, by, making us stand up during the service on Mother's Day, but it's clunky and weird and awkward, and I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Do you think a lot of churches, why do you think they don't broach it? Or do you think a lot of they maybe try, like I know my church at one point did a singles meet and greet. Do you think people are just kind of awkward about it because they don't want to be like, and I'm single and ready to mingle?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
It's
a mixture. I think I like to split them into two. So you've got like a mingle event, people who are single, desiring to be married, and this is how you get married, right? So it's the one side. Then the other side is community for singles, not necessarily to isolate singles into a group all on their own, but to make sure that they have community within the church community. Mm-hmm. So there's two sides to it. And I think the most important thing is actually ensuring that there's a place for singles in church community just to feel at home. The saddest thing is there's way more divorce care in church than there is singles ministry. And that clearly is just an outweighed issue, right? Yeah. We need to fix that. Yeah. So having ministry and ministry and community and opportunity for singles to speak up in church community. So I recently joined my church as a member, which means now I get to vote within my church community. So when things start popping up, I can actually speak to that and say, okay, well, what about the families that are just individual people who are adults, who are not young adults, who are not divorced, who are not widowed or widowers or not seniors? Like, what about people, which is the vast majority of people who don't go to church, who we're trying to grow the kingdom with, aren't married, right?
True.
So how do we make sure when they get there, they feel welcome,
Yeah. And how do you kind of invite those people to church? Because it's so intimidating to go by yourself. Like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to church now, just like, or come back to the faith, or come to Jesus for the first time and you're single and you're walking into a church and everyone's coupled. So having a welcoming stance, I think is, like you're saying, is a really good idea.
Yeah. I also feel like because we mentioned earlier that, meeting someone at church would be like the best. And I've had to kind of let that idea go a little bit, that I'm not going to church with the understanding that I might meet my husband there, because there aren't a lot of dudes at church.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and go, maybe it's time for me to start praying about men's ministry and male discipleship, because as much as I am a 30-something-year-old woman who's single, there's tons of men out in the world who are charming and, smart and fun and kind and compassionate, all those kind of things, but they don't love Jesus. So they need to be in the church. That's where, then maybe the church is a place where you meet people, men meet women or women meet men who love Jesus. But as of right now, because there's such a disparity between women and men in the church, it doesn't feel like the best place to meet a guy, because there's just not that many.
I thought I read somewhere that it's actually more men are coming back to the church now, even more than women.
Gen Z. Yes.
Oh,
the Gen Z church is growing like hugely. Yes. So you're totally right on that.
Yeah. Like they're,
yeah. So the 18 to 20, I don't know what Gen Z is, 27, 28. I don't know. That community is growing specifically with men, which is epic, because when I'm at young adults and I'm serving on team, I'm starting to realize we're so many, and they're all like so on fire for Christ. So yeah, that certainly is happening. It's just not much in the millennial category.
Absolutely. I know. I sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back to those times I was crying at night, really sad and lonely. I had to really struggle with being single. Some people can handle it a lot better. I really didn't like it. I always wanted to be married. I was like, I felt like it was a calling from God to be married.
Yeah.
But I wish I could go and just say, it's good. You might get pushed past the age you had in mind. You might get pushed past anything. It's going to be well worth the wait, 100 million% worth it. And if my husband came 1 week before, I wouldn't have been ready because I was dating someone else. 1 week. That's how precise God is on his timing. He's like, not this week, that week. Wouldn't have received him 1 week before. So then we can really lean into, and what I've learned from that is I can lean into the miracles that God provides, He knows what he's doing. He knows your husband's heart. He knows your heart. He knows exactly the moment you need to meet. He knows how to stretch you in just the right way that you're really uncomfortable with it. And I don't think it's like you were saying earlier. It's not like you need to reach all these goalposts. It's just that he has a plan. Just like in all the stories of the Bible, there's always a plan for his purpose. And maybe if it was a week sooner, I would have dated this other guy and I wouldn't have come back to the faith with my husband. That's probably what would have happened. I was coming back to the faith slowly, but I wasn't 100% in yet. When I met my husband, we went full in together. But the other guy I was dating a week before wasn't Christian. My life could have been a totally different way. God
very different.
God has such a deep plan. So if I could go back to my former self, I would just say, I know it's hard and I know waiting sucks, but his plan is so perfect. And I'm just saying myself for other parts of my life that aren't quite where I want them to be too. But, it's,
I think one of the beauties of what you're saying, it's in God's perfect timing. It's coming, it's on the way, it's in the mail, all those sorts of things, is that the hardship around that is, I used to pray, God, can you just give me like a peek just to make sure he is actually coming, because you've done all these other things in my life, but like, how do I know if that blessing's coming? And so I had this like revelation of like, he's come through in so many other ways. Why can't you see his blessing or his faithfulness in those things and how it translates to this thing? Like, why can't you look at all the faithfulness as the same? Why are you, I didn't get married, so he might not be as faithful as I thought, but I did get all these other things. Why can't they be the same? It's the same God. It's the same, he blesses you equally. And that helped me kind of think, wait, why am I putting so much weight onto this one specific thing and not the other things? And I realized like there's a lot to do with the environment I find myself in, the books I was reading, the, TV shows I was watching. I was putting marriage way higher than everything else.
Absolutely.
So it was outweighed.
And he might be giving you insight. You wouldn't know until it happens. And then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, he told me over and over exactly who I was going to marry. Or like it gave me hints along the way and little breadcrumbs, but you don't know it until in retrospect. Right. But it's true. And there's so many incredible blessings to being single. I think sisterhood, I'd say that's like one of the top ones that you just don't get the same. You can have mom friends. I don't have children yet, so I'm finding myself in the church also being like, I don't fit
Where's
in.
my space?
So I
Yeah.
fit in as a single woman, and now as a woman that doesn't have children yet, I feel like I also don't fit in. And so
Right.
really, if you're not married and you're not with children, for a lot of people that aren't in those categories, there is a feeling like I don't totally belong here. And
Yeah.
and yet when you read the Bible, well, two things. You come to that a lot of the people that had the very close connections with God were single,
Yeah.
childless, that
Yeah.
blessing. But then you also see the biggest pain of women in the Bible, from Sarah, Elizabeth, all the different is around marriage and childbirth.
Yes, that's so true.
It's a deep pain that's at the core of who we are, and a deep want for women, I think, a natural want. Do you agree
Yes.
with that? Like, it's a natural.
It is a natural want. And I think that what's sad about our like worldly view currently is to desire marriage, to desire kids, to desire family, to desire a home and some land and, beautiful Christmases and like all that sort of stuff is seen as like fodder. It's like fairy tale. It's like, that's cute and all, but what's really going to happen in life? And I feel like it didn't come out of nowhere. Like this thought, this dream, this prayer that I've had didn't come out of nowhere. But if you speak it out into the world, if you maybe at your workplace and things like that with people who don't know God, but also people who do, there's the idea of like, okay, Meisha, like really, like that's what you're looking for. I'm like, yeah, I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend time with my kids. I'm look forward to this and that. And I find myself having to fight off and it's so sad, but like negative language that is spoken towards me about my prayers, because there's a lot of a lack of faith now that I've hit my 30s that I'm going to have all those things from other people. I hear that quite consistently. Oh, really? I didn't know you were like interested in marriage. I'm like, I might be like, dude, I'm having a fantastic life. Yes, God has been blessing me. I've like really appreciated my singleness year over year. But I look at it and go like, no, but I can't wait to be married. When I get married, I'm going to have a bridal shower. Like recently, I got to go to this amazing wedding. My friend, she is now in her 40s, and we used to cry together about marriage. Like I've always known that I was going to be a wife and a mom and all those things. And it was the same for her.
Mm-hmm.
And when she hit 40, she kind of went, I guess this is it. And we cried together. And I got to go to her wedding recently, and seeing, like, I've never had more like of a beautiful moment at a wedding, because seeing her up there with her husband or her groom, and they're just smiling at each other. And she's wearing this big ball gown too. And that was another thing was, you get married later on in life and you're like, am I allowed to wear a ball gown? Like, is that only for younger brides? Like, are you kidding? Rock the ball gown. Like all those kinds of things is told, we're told like it's fairy tale for you to think that way about your life. But it's like, my God's not going to hold that back from me. My God's not going to say, oh, you know what? Because I remember one time I told my brother, maybe I don't get to be a mom. Maybe I'm just like that auntie down the street who like, has an epic back garden. And so kids like to play there. And that's my version of mothering. And he turned to me, he said, what are you talking about? Of course you're going to be a mom. And I needed that in that moment. Yeah. So all the times I do hear those kind of negative language, I come back with a boldness and a confidence. Like, how dare you speak that over me or over anybody else? No. And when I hear women speak about it in themselves, like, oh, that's past, that time has passed for me. That's how I get a vigor in me to say like, no. Let's rebuke any lie that's told you that God can't bless you with those kinds of miracles. Why can't he? Like, why can't he? He's constantly going outside of what the world sees as normal or expected. Let's do the greater thing. Let's actually believe in faith that we can get those beautiful things that only God provides.
Absolutely. And to hold on to God is the God of the impossible. So even if it seems impossible, which by the way, I was in my 40s when I got married too.
Okay, there you go.
It is not impossible. And I have other friends that got married in their 40s, and life isn't over at 40, ladies.
Come on.
There's one thing you got to know, it does not end. Actually, it gets better. I would say life just gets better as you get older. For me anyway. Yeah. But also one thing that I think was helpful is, and maybe you find this, and it sounds like you're a very hopeful person.
Mm-hmm.
I would go through so much pain being single, but I also like when I'd tune in and I'd pray and I'd speak to the Lord, because he was always there present in my life. Even when I wasn't in the faith, I had that relationship with him, but I always had that hope. I just had this little pearl of like, no, I know you can do this. And I know you're going to do this. And it was just like, that actually never faded. Even through the darkest nights, there'd be this little glimmer of like, okay, I know I'm hitting 40 now and there's less men available. They're married, they're whatever these things are. And it's like, God has your person somewhere. It's one person.
Right.
You don't have to meet 20 men. You need to meet
Thank
one.
you.
Right? But
I just need one awesome man of God who sees me and is like, that's my girl. That's it. Just one. Just
exactly.
One.
Yeah. And that's how it went down for me anyway. Jordan, my husband, saw me on the app, and he said he threw his phone because he was like, oh no, that's my wife. Like he knew right away that can happen, that can happen when God works so, and all the miracles that came together for us to be ready at the right time. It just makes me, God really can do anything. And I have such faith in that now and so I almost think sometimes he creates these circumstances where a miracle happens that deepens your faith even more. So like if you were just given a husband when you're 25, you don't get to see that and experience that miracle, which is and that healing and that whole thing, which is such a gift.
Oh, for sure. I've always said that like God has allowed me to have this waiting season because I'm a loud daughter of God. Every time God bless me, I can't shut up about it. And so when my husband comes, best believe he will get the glory. He will get the glory.
And then exactly. Then you're going to have to hand off all these singles ladies groups you created.
The thing is, I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to. Like, I feel like I know singleness more than I know marriage. So I can't talk on that, but I would talk on singleness to the day I die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe even after it'll be part of the ministry, because I feel one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because I'm so passionate about this topic myself, having been single and in so much pain for a long time. And then having been on the side of it of like, oh, God came through. Like, I love talking to people that are single for that reason. And just saying like, because sometimes you just need those glimmers of hope. Like, hey, I know that this can happen for you because it happened for me after such a long period of time. And well beyond the timeline and all the things. And 100 times, my husband is 100 times better than I even imagined. God's story, the man he wrote is 100 times better. I'd say 1,000 times better than my mind could have even come up with.
I love to hear that.
So what you think God's possible of is a sliver, is a tiny little seed of what he's actually capable of. Dreaming up for you. And so I think that's a good reminder too. I can't remember where it says in the Bible. It's like God's thoughts are not our thoughts. He sees things so much bigger, so much better than we can fathom.
Absolutely. I love hearing love stories. Like, I just love it because God is love. And so any opportunity for me to hear about someone falling in love, I'm like, or choosing love, I just absolutely love it. Like, it's one of those things where it took me a long time to get to a place where I could actually hear a love story. When I hit like, I guess like my 30, 31, 32 around there, when someone would talk about like, I met this guy and we're dating, it took everything in me not to just kind of like, what's the word? Like frown. I'd be like, oh, great for you. But like, where's mine? Like, I couldn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And God just changed my heart around it a lot. And now I'm just like I actually tell my friends who have been single for a long time and then they meet their guy, because you said before, a lot of their friends are still single. So then they feel like they have to temper their joy a bit and not share everything. And so I usually beeline for them right away. I'm like, I want to be the friend that you tell everything to. If you want to like go through, like, you want to talk about like your weddings or like this section that you didn't know was going to happen or whatever. Like, I just want to hear everything. And on top of that, I've said to myself, if I do ever have a glimmer of, man, this is really hard to hear, that's okay. But I'm going to bring it to God. I already know how to do that. Yeah. So instead of me, missing out on hearing these beautiful stories, I'm going to take it to God every time the story leads me to doubt my own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. It sounds like you're already choosing to be happy regardless. of what happens, which I think is the hardest part of it.
Yeah, but I think, I'm a fairly happy, jolly person in general. My doctor was like, you have a low stress level. I'm like, I chose a lot of things, and I talked about Jesus, which was awesome to talk to my doctor about.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was pretty epic. But I'm an optimistic person for sure. But I think also God has sent me what I call gummy bears, which are just these little treats for years in my life where I can look back and they're not far off. Little things like I always remember looking for a new apartment I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, which is a smaller city, but a city for those of you who don't know. And in living here, I was like, I want a really nice place. I was living in big city Toronto, but I want a beautiful home. And I remember drawing a picture and I was like, it'd be really cool if it had a yellow door.
Yeah.
It's my favorite color. And I would love to be able to come home to a yellow door. Wouldn't you believe that the only apartment that accepted my application was this place with the yellow door? And when I walked into this place, it was like this huge, like kind of traditional home that looked just amazing. And I bought a yellow couch, which I could afford at the time. And I just had like the most beautiful moments in that space. And that to me is like a little gummy bear. It's just a door. It's just a yellow door. But it's those little things that God has highlighted to me over the years that have actually brought me a lot of optimism and hope. And I think a lot of people missed out on those. God is still sending everybody these things and highlighting them to them. But we need to ask him, okay, God, like in this season, I need you to highlight everything in my life that you're blessing me with so that I don't miss it and that my hope can continually be renewed.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. Gummy bears. That's such a good way to see it. These little gummy bears of you expressing to God like a prayer for a certain thing, a specific thing, and then seeing it right away. Yeah.
And it's just little things. I say gummy bear because it has zero nutritional value, but it's just nice. It's like a yellow door. I don't need a yellow door. Love that I have it now. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. What would be, okay, and kind of because we're getting to the close here, but what would be your advice to the singles of the church at this point? What do you say? What's your wisdom?
For every single, I'm going to get a bit dramatic. I'm an actor as well. So here we go. When you're watching Netflix, okay, and the movie's dragging on, you usually hit the mouse to see kind of like where the line is at. Like, how much more do I have to watch of this before I get to the next episode or whatever? And in life, you can't do that. But my hope is that every single can kind of imagine that their big thing, their meet cute, their romance moment, their meeting the person, whatever it is days away, like moments away. Mm-hmm. And that we would live our life like it was right on its way.
Yeah.
So not missing out on things. We often make decisions based on, well, if I move to a smaller town, I'll never meet the guy. If I leave the country, I'll never meet the guy. If I take this high paying job as a woman, he won't be able to make as much as me. So then I'll never meet the kind of guy I want. And, we put all these parameters around just accepting the blessings God has for us in the moment. So the biggest blessing of my life has been living right in the middle, and I guess the moment before the big moment, and just enjoying it, whether that's solo traveling, whether that's starting my business, whether that was moving to a smaller city, all those sorts of things. I'm enjoying it now because I know my husband is on the way. He could be listening right now. If he is, hey, how you doing? Hey. But he's on his way. And so I don't want to miss any blessing from this season that God has for me. And I pray that prayer often. Lord, will you reveal to me anything that's left in this season? I want to rinse it all the way out before I head into that next season, because the last thing I want is to get married and wish I wasn't. Yeah. So right now, while I'm single, God, if there's anything you've got for me, like, show it to me. Put it on a platter. I'm ready to eat.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Maybe you're supposed to come speak out here and he's out in BC. Who knows?
Yeah, actually, I'm hoping to get out to BC next year. So if I'm out there, I'll reach out.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you got to come see us. And I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities to speak at various places and different churches out here too. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I'd love it.
Oh, I'm so glad we had this talk. It was so infilling, and
Me too.
Yeah, I just love the work you're doing, and I'm excited to keep seeing and watching you on your channel and your Instagram grow and share your message and your joy. Just your joy is so contagious and just so lovely.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing too. I know you're wrapping up, but I really do appreciate you sharing your story as well. I think that often when you're single for a long time and then you get married, there's this feeling of, well, can I really speak to it again? And absolutely you can. Like, you've encouraged me in this conversation as well. And I'm sure for a lot of people who are listening. So I just want to say thank you for sharing.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm happy to share it. If you have my belief is that if you have that wish in your heart, of course, there's going to be some people it doesn't happen for. So I'm not going to deny that. Like, that is a possibility. I think it's a rarer possibility. I think God, if we have that hope in our heart, I do think he provides that. So maybe not in the way we thought. The story might be totally different.
Rarely in the way we thought, actually.
Very different, probably. But yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Meisha.
Thanks for having me.